When I was 19, I moved from Oregon to Florida to be with my boyfriend at the time. I was thinking white sand beaches and Mickey Mouse, but instead got the swamps and bugs and dirt roads. It was a huge shock to the system. We lived in this dinky little town called Hawthorne just outside of Gainesville, very small, one stoplight and 4 stores, Dollar General, Steve's Market, Records Pharmacy, and Sunday Barbecue will be. I got a job at the now defunct Records in the middle of the town. It was next to the grocery store, so everyone shopped there. After about 3 months or so working there, I walked in to start my shift one day when the manager pulled me into his office. Laid down in his desk was about 30 to 40 open letters, all addressed by hand to me. "Do you know this person?" my manager asked. No, I thought to myself, read one. So I picked the cheerful yellow one. Inside were 2 handwritten letters in the magazine cut out of a woman with long blonde hair just like me. As the record manager watched on, I read the letter. I skipped around a lot of confusion, desperately trying to find out why I'm in this room. From what I read, it was mostly someone imagining what spending time with me would be like. There were descriptions and comments about my hair, washing it, smelling it, and something about the moonlight. A few sentences were highlighted, others were underlined. My first thought was my getting fired. "Do you know this David Elrod Hare?" I said yes, I think so. The tall lanky guy, with thick glasses, and frizzy dark blonde hair. The regular who comes in a couple of times a week to pick up a Diet Coke and medication for his mom, late 20s, and obviously socially or mentally challenged. On rare occasions, he would make small talk as I rang up a soda. Once or twice, he would linger in my register or stare at me, but I figured he was just trying to adjust his eyes or had poor social cues. Harmless compared to some of the other people I've met here in Florida, so I didn't pay him any mind. Until that day, in the records office. I knew he wrote the letters because of a strange encounter 2 weeks earlier. While working, he came up behind me and caressed my hair. I had to remove it from his hands, and he apologized. Weird, no harm, went back to work. After telling my manager this, he informed me that the customer was going to be banned from the store and that was being sent home while they worked out the details. What details? Confused, I walked out of the store and drove home. Strange. 2 hours after I got home from my non-shift at work, there was a knock at the door. I look out my window and see what resembles a SWAT team. I saw men in tactical gear with large weapons to men dressed in suits and several uniformed cops, and would seem like slow motion at the time I opened the door. A female officer holds up a few oddly familiar letters. "Can we come in and talk to you about these?" Realizing everyone in town had read the letters, I wanted to pass out. I don't even know the guy. We have a seat on my couch and she begins to speak. Out of the corner of my eye, I see my boyfriend shooting the dirty looks from the bedroom. The female officer mentions getting the letters from Records and attempting to issue a trespassing notice. They wanted to speak to him directly. She says, because her whole department is aware of David. The officers confronted him at his residence and attempted to evoke the trespassing notice from a record store. Apparently he was not happy about this. He insisted for over 45 minutes that this was all a big mistake, and I wanted to talk to him. He was so combative and persistent. They decided to pursue stalking charges. "Stalking charges," I thought. She continues. "You need to be aware that David killed and partially dismembered his mother when he was 12 years old. He was released from a juvenile psychiatric facility less than 4 years ago. Diet Coke we found disturbing material was at his house," she continued. "We believe he's been stalking you." My mind kept wandering as my mom's favorite drink. He would say David was arrested the next day for stalking after he was found in the Records parking lot. But the last official word was he went back to the psychiatric hospital, at least temporarily. I didn't have the chance to read the letters in full before they were entered in some vault of evidence, nor did they explain what they found at this house. So we never had the complete picture of what was happening. My boyfriend at the time was a huge idiot about the whole thing. so I moved back to Oregon. Week later, besides, who wants to hang around when Norman Bates is fixated on you? Live in Florida, and this incident happened about 3 weeks after Hurricane Irma. Back in July, the ex and I had just finalized the divorce, and I moved into a gated neighborhood, where every house was rented out by the same rental company and landlords. It's a very small neighborhood with about 15 houses tops off. 15 houses are bordered around a man-made lake, with the backyards facing the lake. No one really has a fenced backyard. When you walk out of your back door, you see the lake in front of you and your neighbor's backyard on the side of you. Everyone in the neighborhood seemed very close. Someone was always hosting a family-friendly party, or barbecue, or having people over to watch sports. I was, and then still, depressed about my divorce. So I never partook in these social gatherings. The only person I got to know was my next-door neighbor Steve, an active Navy soldier with a huge love for guns. Steve is the true hero in this nightmare. My daughter Alice is 4 years old, and I get her every weekend. Alice's bedroom window faces the backyard towards the lake. I spoiled that girl to death. She truly is my everything, and I count down the days to the weekend every week just to be with her. That's why I was upset when Irma came and I had to go almost 3 weekends without seeing her. The weekend before the storm she was with her mom. Then obviously the weekend of the storm she was with a mom. Then on top of that the weekend after she had to be with her mom because my power was still out. No AC in Florida was miserable. The humidity was so bad that week that I slept in my daughter's room the whole week because he was the only room with a window that faced the lake. I opened the window exposing just the window screen. So the wind from the lake cooled the room as much as possible while I slept. Eventually, the power comes back and Alice starts visiting me again like normal. That was when the nightmare started. My daughter would explain about the singing lady, and now she doesn't like her anymore. I thought maybe she was referring to one of my ex's friends or one of the teachers at our school. Maybe there was a teacher at a school that sang to the kids and that she didn't like it. But that Saturday night Alice woke up in the middle of the night screaming bloody murder. I ran into a room and turned on the light and found her hiding under her covers. I asked her what was wrong. And all she could do was point to an empty corner of her room, yell, "Look, look." There was nothing there. She was acting as if though she had seen a ghost. After I calmed her down, she started to talk about the singing lady again. "Please tell the singing lady not to come back. Please, Daddy, make her go away." She would say obviously she is having nightmares. Right? I showed her that there was nothing in the closet and nothing under the bed and that there was nothing to be afraid of. She calmed down and went back to sleep. I went back to my room and quickly fell back asleep as well. It couldn't have been more than 20 minutes before Alice comes running into my room screaming, "She's back. She's back." Alice absolutely refused to go back to her room. So I let her sleep with me. The next morning, Sunday morning, I took Alice out to breakfast and we stopped by Target to pick up a baby monitor. I haven't used one since her and her mom and I were still married, but I wanted to easily be able to hear her and if and when she was having nightmares again, so I could respond quicker. After I set them up, I showed Alice how they worked to give her assurance that I could hear her, she was safe. That night, she slept soundly and didn't make a peep all night. The following weekend, Alice had to stay with her mother again because she had got a stomach virus from one of her little friends at school. It was Saturday night and I was sound asleep in my bed. Around 2 a.m. is when I heard it. A woman's voice humming a soft nursery rhyme through the baby monitor. The humming and soft singing got louder and clearer. As the voice got closer to the monitor, I wasn't dreaming. I could hear a woman softly singing lullabies in my daughter's bedroom. I've never been so scared and dumbfounded in my life. I was feeling a mixture of pure terror and disbelief. Then the voice spoke out. "Alice, sweetie. Are you awake?" Adrenaline shot through my veins. I jumped out of bed and locked my bedroom door. I picked up my cell and called Steve from next door. He didn't waste a second. As soon as I got off the phone with him, I heard him storm out of his back door screaming, "Don't you move." I ran outside and found him aiming his shotgun at a woman crouched outside my daughter's window. The one I had left open after Irma and never closed. Steve quickly dropped his guard when he recognized the woman. It was Jean, the neighborhood and maintenance woman. Steve's wife came running out after him and confirmed it was her. Jean played dumb. She said she was not singing and didn't even know my daughter's name. She said she was near my daughter's window because she was doing her weekly patrol for gators, and thought she saw one approaching her house from the lake full of crap. That chick was singing, and she called out to my daughter by name. Yes, it's true that there have been a few gator spottings around the neighborhood. And yes, part of Jean's job was to patrol the lake at night every now and then. But at 2 a.m. I obviously knew it was bullcrap. And even though neither Steve or his wife called her out on it, I could tell by the look on their faces that they didn't believe her either. The next morning, I went over to Steve's house to thank him and tell him exactly what happened. He told me Jean and her husband had been known to be a little cuckoo. But this is by far the craziest thing to have happened so far. Steve helped me install metal bars on Alice's window that afternoon. I'm a proud Floridian at the time of the story in the early 2000s. I was going to college in South Florida and lived with my family in my hometown in the Florida Panhandle. It was about a 7-hour drive up through Central Florida to get between the two places. So I mostly only went home for the holidays. It was the Thanksgiving in my junior year. And I was excited that I managed to rearrange my midterms to be able to leave campus 3 days ahead of everyone else. I was hoping to beat the masses of traffic and was hoping for a quick trip back home. My roommates wanted to have a last meal together before you're left for breaks. So I ate in the campus dining hall at around 4 p.m. And I set off on my journey back home and around 5:30. Around 10 p.m. I had just passed my 2/3 mark. Well, we stopped at this little mom and pop's type of diner by the side of the highway to grab a snack, use the restroom and call my dad to let them know I was okay. And didn't have a cell phone yet. Well, I hadn't been there since summer, and the place was out of business. So a little bummed out that I wasn't getting my chocolate chip pancakes, I just kept going. There really wasn't much build-up around there at that time. So when I saw signs for a rest stop in, of all places on God's green earth, some little town called Alachua, I went for it. So I went and parked directly under the streetlight for safety and used the facilities, called my dad, etc., etc. I didn't see anyone else there, except for a very exhausted-looking woman who approached me asking for directions, saying she was with her husband and 2 small children from Virginia. And they had made a wrong turn trying to get to Disney. So I left the rest area and was walking back to my car when I noticed a beat-up, unmarked, grayish, bluish work van parked incredibly close to the driver's side of my '95 Honda Civic. Yeah, okay. I thought that's pretty weird. And had Florida tags on it. So it couldn't have been the lady Side had talked to in the bathroom. I distinctly remember she said she was from Virginia. I turned around and hightailed it back to the rest stop, promptly running into some random middle-aged guy with 2 little boys. Getting to talk to him. It turned out it was his wife I had spoken to as she emerged from the bathroom a second later, and I felt comfortable speaking to him. I told him what was going on with the van, how I didn't know what to do. He said, "Go check it out." So he left the kids with his wife and stretched it up to the driver's side of the van. He stood there for a moment before speaking. His voice awkwardly quivered, but we could hear him yell it from where we were standing some 100 feet away. "Excuse me, gentlemen. We already called the police. So I'm going to have to politely suggest that you get out of here." And then he ran back to us, grabbed his wife and his kids, pointed to me with a swift U and said, "Come on. Let's go get in the car now." And we ran together. So here I was confusedly sitting in the back of the stranger's SUV, while he went and used the payphone to presumably call the police. Meanwhile, the van peeled out of there. Like I've never seen someone get out of there, quite like they had gotten out of there. They ran up on the curb on the way out. They burned rubber. It was almost comical. The cops got there, and I found out what had happened. The man went to go check out the van. He could see in it pretty well because I had parked under the streetlight. The first thing he noticed was that all the seats except for the driver's seat had been removed. And there was a guy sitting in the driver's seat and a guy sitting in the back, a tarp laid out in the back and a bunch of random items back there. He couldn't immediately identify. Neither of the guys were reading a newspaper or a map or anything that were apparently both just sitting there. It still makes me sick thinking about it.